in Sin City. They call the rising sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy. And God, I know I'm one. My mother was a tailor. She sold my new blue jeans. My father was a gambling man down in Sin City. Thing a gambler needs is a suitcase and a trunk, and the only time he's satisfied is when he's on a drunk. I've got one foot on the platform, the others on the train. I'm going back to Sin City to wear that ball and chain.
And good evening, you're listening to The Hardy Show on iHeartRadio.com, Sports Talk Speaker app. I'm Hardy. Thanks for joining in with us on this cold. If you're on the East Coast, it's cold. It's cold. That's all I'm going to say. And it's snowy. You know, I'm not on the part that got the whole blizzard stuff, which was up there by, Connecticut and New York and Boston, but we got enough where I'm at. We got enough to make it to where it's a pain in the butt to deal with. You know what I mean? But we've got sports to get to. We've got a show to get to. It is Thursday, January the 4th, 2018. Almost said 17. Almost did. Email for the show is hardy4824@gmail.com. Again, email for the show is hardy4824@gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, whatever it may be, live on the Speaker Radio app, or also live on iHeartRadio.com. You can find us on YouTube as well. My Twitter page is up, which is at Hardy7830. That's at Hardy7830. And we do, obviously this is going to be mainly sports, but I mean, there's going to be times that we might get into, entertainment or pop culture or other things, but obviously this is mainly a sports show. And I can tell you, look, there are more and more people, with ESPN doing what they're doing. They have a bunch of new shows starting in January. You've got Fox Sports and CBS and NBC that are starting new shows and doing new things. I've noticed that there's more and more people getting into this type of business and career field, if you will. from broadcasters to writers to people working directly with ESPN. It's really branched out. It's really more dynamic now than what it's ever been. But I'm here to give you all the best opinion in sports that I can give you. And again, feel free to contact the show, hardy4824@gmail.com. Twitter is @hardy7830. Again, that's @hardy7830. You can get a hold of us through iHeartRadio.com. And if you're listening live on the speaker app, you can chime in there. The poll question for tonight, it's very straightforward because we're expecting that after this weekend, it's going to be announced. But the poll question is, do you think Jon Gruden will be successful if he takes the Raiders' head coaching job? All signs are pointing to that he's going to take the job. Now, there was rumor that there may be ownership stake involved in it. Jon Gruden on Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio went on air and denied that. He said that there were no talks of stakes to ownership in a contract. Doesn't mean that it won't be offered, but that's a slippery slope. Because if the Raiders, well, for one, they would have to get it passed, and a lot of people don't think it would pass anyways. And what would have to happen is all the owners would have to okay it. They would have to okay Jon Gruden being part owner of the Raiders and being the head coach. And the articles that I've read about it and the people that I've talked to, the chances are it would not pass. And that's probably why it's not going to be offered in the contract. But don't be surprised if they don't try. You know, there's no harm in trying. If it passes, it passes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But that's a slippery slope, because you're opening the door for other head coaches to use that as a platform. Because if Jon Gruden does end up getting ownership stake in the Raiders and is their head coach, then you could have other head coaches out there that could use that as leverage. They could sit there and say, well, Jon Gruden got 5-10% or whatever ownership. I want to get 5 to 10% ownership. So I just don't see it happening, because I don't think the owners would pass it. That's why I don't see it happening. And look, I quite don't understand the pull of Jon Gruden, the fascination of Jon Gruden. And really, it's mostly with the Raiders. Now, we've heard before, and we deal with this every year, that, they might offer him the job, they might go after him. And there were times that people thought that he was going to come back. But we don't know clearly and decisively what teams actually reached out to Jon Gruden and gave it an attempt. I'm going to take a guess that the Raiders weren't the only ones. And I'm going to take a guess that in his 10-year absence from coaching, that he's had plenty of teams call him. Now, on the flip side of that, the Raiders were one of those teams that John Gruden said that he would leave ESPN, he would leave the booth to go coach. And it's a perfect atmosphere. It's a decent defensive line. John Gruden is known for having good defenses. That's how he won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. The only Super Bowl that he won, but he won it, and he won it with defense. So you have that there. You have a talented young quarterback who had a fallback year this year. He didn't have a good year this year. You have some offensive talent there. You're probably going to have to find a running back because I don't expect Marshawn Lynch to be back next season. So if John Gruden does take this job, which all signs are pointing to that he is, and that it's going to happen after the wild card game this weekend, which he is in the booth for. And pretty much that's why a contract hasn't been signed yet, is because he's contracted to do that Chiefs-Titans game. And that's why a contract with the Raiders hasn't been set yet. But are the Raiders, I get the infatuation with Gruden. I understand that. He won a Super Bowl. When he was with the Raiders, he took them to the playoffs a couple of times. Some people believe that he was a tuck rule away from going to a Super Bowl with them. But when he went to the Buccaneers, he took over a pretty good team. Won a Super Bowl with it the following season, but he took over a pretty good team. Now, with that said, Bill Callahan, who took over as head coach for the Raiders when Gruden got traded to Tampa Bay, he took Gruden's players to the Super Bowl that year, where, of course, they faced the Buccaneers with Gruden, and they lost. But when you look at it, Gruden stopped coaching in 2008. The game has changed a lot. I mean, think about that for a second. Gruden has not coached in the NFL for 10 years. Now, what he's done in the booth, is it similar to coaching? Yes, he's looking at film. He's breaking down plays. It's not like he's been away from the game for 10 years. But on the other side of that, things are drastically different in today's NFL than what Gruden coached in 2008. And look past, yes, he won that Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. He got to the playoffs a couple times with the Raiders. But besides that, he's been an average 500-plus win percentage head coach. That is what he's been. I'm not saying that he's going to come back and fail, but I think that too many people are jumping to this as it's going to be success right out of the gate, and he's going to get the Raiders in contention to play for Super Bowls. The talent is there. Even though Derek Carr had a fallback year this year, I do think he's the quarterback of that franchise and for the future. Like I said, decent defense to work with, and Gruden will improve that. He will improve that substantially. And you have some offensive weapons there. Like I said, I don't expect Marshawn Lynch to be back, so they're probably going to be looking for a running back. But I'm interested to see where this goes. And that's why tonight's poll question, let us know what you think.